Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganata Prapta Sakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Prapta Sakalyana Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Ananita Gita Paritramadhyam Romanchakampasru Tarangavajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Tarangavajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Nana Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Triptan Haribhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Triptan Kridvaiva Tripti Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Bhajata Sadeva Shiradikama Vabayarapara Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Ne Kunja Yono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Vir Yukti Apekshaneya Ne Kunja Yono Radikali Siddhai Jayali Vir Yukti Tatrati Daksha Atibalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Sakshat Haritena Shamasta Shastri Ruktastat Bhava Vyataiva Sarve Samasta Shastri Ruktastat Bhava Vyataiva Kintu Pravorja Priyaiva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Kintu Prabhu Priyaiva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Asya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kuta Dhyayam Stubham Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Dhyayam Stubham Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shri Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasvate Deve brahmacharine nirvishesha shunavadi pachata dishatarine namaste saraswati deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Patata Dishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Bo, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Namah Krishna, Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaye, Kesavaye Namah, Gopal Govindaram, Shri Madhusudam, Giridhari Gopinam, Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava, Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Go, Haribo, 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 Nitai Go, Premanande, Haribo. Jaya Vishnupada Paramsa Prabhajakacharya, Stuttara Saraswati Maharaj Divine Grace. Advaita Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bibli Samstapakachara Vaishnava Sramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prima Bhaktidatta Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Jayananta Kuti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauru Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Jai Paramadayal Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Pramanama Sankirtanika Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gauru Hari Mahavrana Avatari Ki Jai. Golokera Pramadhana Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Brihat Nitanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakunda Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajabhumi Vrindavan Mathurudham Ki Jai. Dear Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakradam Ki. Paramakaruna Shri Gaura Nitai Ki. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puridham Ki. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspudra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karan Shingari Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Maturadharani Ki. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanandi Haribo. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Pralada Narada Aine. Pralada Narada Aine. Hiranyakasipu Bhaksha. Hiranyakasipu Bhaksha. Silatangkana kalai. Jaya Silatangkana kalai. Ito nisingo parato nisingo. Ito nisingo parato nisingo. Jato jato jamita to nisingo. Bahir nisingo, hrudaye nisingo. Narasimhammadini Sharanam Prapade. Tava kara kamala vare nakam adbhuta singha dalita hiranyakashipu tanavringa kesavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re tava kara kamala vare nakam adbhuta singha dalita hiranyakashipu tanavringa kesavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re kesavadruta narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re kesavadruta narahari rupa jai jagadisha re jai jagadisha re Jayo nisingade jayo nisingade nisingade jayo nisingade jayo narahari jayo narahari narahari jayo narahari Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha Jayo Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Nara Bhakta Prahlad Sila Prahlad Nara Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Shri Bhakti Pata Sarabhignashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारिदेवी शतवताये नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदादेवी की। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाव लासी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाव विलासी नमो नमः मोराया विलासी जे तुम्हारा शरणाला तारा बंचा पूर्णा कृपा करे करतरे वृंदावनवासी तुम्हें कृपा करे करतरे वृंदावनवासी नमो नमः मोरया भीला विलास कुंज दियोवा नायने रेबो सदा जुगाल रूपरासी दैनी वेदनादार साकिरा नोगाता करो सेवायादि करो दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दास कह हे ये नामरा श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा ये नवासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये नवासी Yani kani sapapani brahmatari kani son tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pare pare. Yani kani sapapani brahmatari kani son tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pare pare. Yani kani sapapani pramatari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pare pare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always be wholly beautiful, pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carried damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own servant. This very fallen, I'll always serve Krishna praise. May I always sing love Shri Radha and Govind, Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Majanam Bhavamada Vagninivapanam Shreyakari Vajandika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shmaranena Kala Itadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichaina Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtanya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagarishakamahi Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti Raitu Kitve Oinandatanuja Kinkaram Paritama Visame Baba Buddha Kripaya Tavupadapam Taduri Sadisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galara Shudhaya Vadanam Gadgadharudaya Gira Purakari Chitam Vapukada Tavanama Grande Bhavisati Jugaitam Nemishena Chakyusha Prabhusaitam Shunyaitam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahename Asli Shava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshana Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatu Thava Vidadhatulam Patu Mapranastastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahabaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauradveshe Namah. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, think of oneself lower and straight in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so. Even if sandals me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken or hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just our desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Javancha kalpatarugascha kripa sindhuvevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha jai ananta koti vaishnavindi ki jai.
Salakaya Chaksurinvitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadavantikam Pandeham Shri Jivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sadhana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Shat Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamani Shivasavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdade Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaur Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apisidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhude Padambo Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premapadaya Te Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Truse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Akam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jabhakte Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simatsnasito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samiti ki jai, Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chantamani Prakarasat Masukalpa Riksha Laksha Vritesu Surabir Abhipali Antam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Grananda Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Rutik Parnina Vicesa Sobam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yabam Sri Ratnam Gadam Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanamcha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragam Yo Vayo Rablabi Manatso Munipungamanam Sobhyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichinti Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Jayatim Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasta Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajastataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjanap Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksades Invesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunaswarupa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Rama Adi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Kote Kotis Vasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Vishayaveda Vitaya Mana Sattva Volambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vihitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shrististati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Chayeva Yas Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chachesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasti Heto Yasambhatama Pitata Samapaitikar Yat Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deparchadevita Santa Ramagipetya Depayate Vivitahetu Samanu Dharma Sada Dastadragavi Evati Vishnu Darvi Bhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Mananta Jagadanta Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatava Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Lata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Vishesho Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Baswan Yatasma Sakaleshan Jesha Teja Hasriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Pitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Rajaha Vignam Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Maruti Sascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Asmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksaresa Savita Sakala Grahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Shrutesta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Patakava Desta Jiva Yadata Mata Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Pandanu Rupa Falabhaja Namata Noti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Shabakti Bhaja Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Gurugora Vasavya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadrasim Tamahapurete Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Jumabha Mischintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chidanandam Jati Parama Pitada Swadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihisavati Surabhi Byasti Sumahan Nime Sardakya Vavrajatina Hiyatra Pisamaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham I Kulakavitiyam Vedanta Ste Santak Shiti Vira Charakati Pai Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Shi Brahmasamita Ki Jai, Shri Guru Vastika prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord, as is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, text number 35. Apisvid anye chanajatma devam anya ritya samanuvrata ye hidika satyatmaja charudesna gadadaya swasti charanti somya. Api, as also, svit, whether, anye, others, cha, and, nija atma, of one's own self, daivam, Shri Krishna, ananya, absolutely, vritya, faith, samanuvrata, followers, yea, all those who, hridika, Satya Atmaja, the son of Satyabhama, Charudesna, Gada, Adaya, and others, Swasti, all well, Charanti, pastime, Somya, O sober one. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O sober one, others such as Hridika, Charudesna, Gada, and the son of Satyabhama, who accept Lord Sri Krishna as the soul of the self, and thus follow his path without deviation, are they well? Text 36. Apiswadabhyam vijayachutyabayam dharmena dharma paripati setum duryodhano tapyata yat sabayam samaraja Lakshmya Vijayanuvrita Jayanuritya Api, as also Sadaurbhyam, own arms, Vijaya, Arjuna, Achyutabhayam, along with Sri Krishna, Dharmena, on religious principles, Dharma, King Yudhishthira, Paripati, maintains, Setum, the respective religion, Duryodhana, Atapyata, envied, Yat, whose, Sabhayam, royal assembly, Samraja, imperial, Lakshmya, opulence, Vijaya Anuvritya, by the service of Arjuna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Also let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhishthira is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles and with respect for the path of religion. Formerly, Duryodhana was burning with envy because Yudhishthira was being protected by the arms of Krishna and Arjuna as if they were his own arms. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emblem of religion when he was ruling his kingdom with the help of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. The opulence of his kingdom surpassed all imaginations of the opulence of the kingdom of heaven, meaning Indraloka. His actual arms were Lord Krishna and Arjuna, and thus he surpassed everyone's opulence. Duryodhana, being envious of this opulence, planned so many schemes to put Yudhishthira into difficulty, and at last, the battle of Kurukshetra was brought about. After the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaja Yudhishthira was again able to rule his legitimate kingdom, and he reinstated the principles of honor and respect for religion. That is the beauty of a kingdom ruled by a pious king like Maharaj Yudhishthira. Also, let me inquire whether Maharaj Yudhisthira is now maintaining the kingdom according to religious principles and with respect for the path of religion. Formerly, Duryodhana was burning with envy because Yudhisthira was being protected by the arms of Krishna and Arjuna as if they were his own arms. So here we see the pitfall, the very dangerous and precipitous pit of envy, and which eventually becomes hatred and eventually leads to violence. And this is a very dangerous disease. It is a disease of the mind, and it affects the soul in the sense that the soul is like the passenger in a chariot, and the mind is like the driver of the chariot, and the ropes are in the hands of the driver, and he's sort of controlling the horses, and the horses are the five senses. There are five horses, the five senses, and so the soul is just the passenger. It's not actively involved in the action. But actually, the driver is the intelligence, the rope is the mind, and then the senses. So when the senses become, let's say, uncontrollable, the mind loses control, and eventually it affects the intelligence, and then all kinds of dangerous situations arise. Eventually there's a crash. And so the soul is neutral. It's not affected by these things, but yet it cannot control them when the mind and the intelligence become corrupted. The senses, mind, and intelligence become corrupted. So we see an example of this in Duryodhana. And what happens in a situation when one loses control? There's going to be disaster. And there was disaster. All the sons of Dhritarashtra were killed by Bhima and Arjuna and Yudhisthira. And it was a tragedy. But it's all because of the false ego of Duryodhana, and especially the bad association of Sakuni and Karna, and also because of the weakness and the material attachment of Dhritarashtra. So you put all those things together and it spells disaster in life. So we have to be very careful, especially as parents, because if we go with the flow, in other words, become negligent in strictly directing our children, when I say strictly, but with love and devotion, but not compromising the essential things in Krishna consciousness. If we don't maintain that standard, then we will be affected by it. Not only the kids are going to be affected, but we will be affected by it because we have violated our mandate to teach our kids to be Krishna conscious. There's no reason to have children unless you want to expand your Krishna consciousness by accepting the responsibility to train the children to become Krishna conscious. If we're not able to do that, it affects our Krishna consciousness, and we will suffer because of that. So the most let's say, formative ages of a child is between 5 and, basically 5 to 16. And then the most important years in the life of a child is between 16 and 20. That's by that time, by 16, they wake up and they realize they're in this vast world, and there's millions of things that they can explore. And if they haven't been trained between 5 and 16 properly by their parents, they will become bewildered by this material world, and they'll become basically karmis. Karmis are people who believe that sense gratification is the goal of life, and to have sustained sense gratification, you have to make money. And to make money, well, there's different ways of making it. Some kids want to make money by selling marijuana or cocaine or different drugs and make fast money and have a fast life of sense gratification. And or else they might want to go into business and learn different trades to make money. But the goal is sense gratification. It's not to spend the money to proliferate or to increase Krishna consciousness. It's to buy gadgets and houses and cars and boats and this thing and that thing. So we have to be really careful. We only have a certain number of years where we can actually influence the child. And up until 5 years, you can, in a sense, be strict, but not too strict, because the child is still in a formative age. But from 5 years old on to 16, those are the years where you have some measure of control. You have control from 0 to 5, of course, but you have to exercise your control, especially between 5 and 12. From 12 years on, they wake up, and their material desires from previous life become highly critical in their consciousness. All those desires that they were not able to, they had at the moment of death, that either were incomplete or just contemplating them, they awaken at around 12 years old. And the child is overwhelmed because they have all these desires. And then, by the time they're 16, they have the freedom to explore all those desires. You can't really control them. Some of them become uncontrollable even at 12 years old, but usually by 16 they're completely uncontrollable. And the most important years in a child's development is 16 to 20, because that's when they get fixed in their determination to follow a path or some kind of path in their life. Most kids get completely contaminated between 16 and 20. And those are the years that some kids, the ones that fall through the cracks of society are kids that get, addicted to drugs and sex and things like that. And the other kids who are, very, let's say, inspired to achieve material prosperity, they may work very hard those years and then continue after 20 to pursue a career. But the problem is, it's all because they want sense gratification. It has nothing at all to do with Krishna consciousness. So what do we do with this? Well, you have just that certain window between 5 to 12 and maybe up to 16 to influence the child. If you don't take advantage of it because you're too busy working, making money yourself, then it'll affect you seriously. So what is the effect? You become neutered. You're not able to communicate Krishna consciousness. It could continue throughout life. So it's very dangerous. If we can't convince our own children, how are we going to convince anybody else? Right? So we have to think very deeply about this. What is our actual mandate as a parent? And there is a verse that says, don't become a teacher, don't become a guru, don't become a parent, unless you're able to convince your children to become Krishna conscious. In other words, don't even have children if you're not going to take the responsibility to teach them to be Krishna conscious. So, Maharaj Yudhisthira was the emblem of religion. So that's a nice word, emblem. It usually means, something like a sign or something that, or something visible that identifies a person. Well, the visible thing that identified Maharaj Yudhisthira was Krishna consciousness, and following strictly the principles of Varnashram Dharma and Krishna consciousness. Well, he was a little too much on the side of Varnashram Dharma and not completely, just like Arjuna was also, not completely pure Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he was very hesitant to completely follow everything Krishna said, especially when Krishna told him basically to mislead Dronacharya on the battlefield of Kurukshetra by saying that, was it Dronacharya or, wait a minute. Anyway, mislead someone, and he told him to say that Aswatthama is dead. So he didn't want to tell a lie. He was too attached to having a certain, let's say, a standard of always telling the truth. Now, it's nothing wrong with always telling the truth, but if Krishna orders you to say something and you refuse to do it, you have violated the highest standard of morality. The highest standard of morality is to follow Krishna's instructions. That's higher than mundane morality. And therefore, because of that, he had to suffer. But in any case, he tried to make a clever, let's say, medium by saying, Aswatthama, the elephant, is dead. So he tried to not tell a lie while appearing to tell a lie. So those type of tricks always get karmic reactions. We can't trick Krishna. We can only trick ourselves or other people. So we have to decide to integrally follow the Lord's instructions. Okay, so when he was ruling his kingdom with the help of Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the opulence of his kingdom surpassed all imaginations of the opulence of the kingdom of heaven. So see, now this defeats this idea that, if I don't get an education to get a good job, then I'll be poor the rest of my life. What? What are you talking about? Prabhupada comes to America with nothing, and in 11 years, he becomes a multi-billionaire, right? But he's not attached to it, right? He opens up more than 108 temples. He has close to 5,000 disciples, and the maintenance of his organization that he builds up from zero is worth the billions, right? And it's still growing, right? So what are you talking about? If you don't get the mundane education, you'll be a failure in life, or you won't be able to make any money. If you have bad habits, and that's what hinders you from Krishna consciousness, yes, that's a fact. You'll be a wasted nobody the rest of your life. But if you develop Krishna consciousness, then Krishna will endow you with everything that's needed to spread this movement, including money, including opulence. Not that we're working for those things, but they're concomitant factors. Just like there's a verse, it says, that simply by engaging in devotional service, knowledge and renunciation follow. It's not that first I have to have knowledge and renunciation, and then I can be Krishna conscious. No, it doesn't work like that. It works in the opposite way. By becoming Krishna conscious, then knowledge and renunciation develop naturally. So these are misconceptions, and as long as we keep misconceptions in the mind, we will be maybe successful due to our previous karma in material life, but we'll be a failure we'll be a failure as far as spiritual life is concerned. Like, for example, someone like Jeff Bezos is very successful materially, but he's a failure as far as Krishna consciousness goes. Same with Elon Musk, the same with Bill Gates, same with Steve Jobs. You can go down the list. They're all very, very successful materially due to their previous karma, and they're all failures as far as Krishna consciousness goes. So all the failed people are glorified by other failed people, but not by devotees, because they know what the real situation is. They're going to take birth again, and now, because of all the sins that they've committed, they're going to suffer in their next life. They're suffering even now. So we have to be careful about, well, look at Maharaj Yudhisthira, because he was very pious, and he was always in contact with Krishna, and he always listened to his guru's instructions. So, therefore, Krishna and Arjuna were his arms. And Duryodhana very rightfully could see this, that this man is so successful and opulent because Krishna and Arjuna are on his side. And he became envious of that. But he did not understand what he was seeing. He could have also gained the favor of Krishna and Arjuna, you see. So his problem was not Yudhisthira. His problem was he didn't have respect, and he didn't have any real worship for Krishna and his devotee Arjuna. He was envious of them, and his envy has no limits, so he became envious of Yudhisthira also, who was receiving so much help from Krishna and Arjuna. So this is the original cause of people's difficulty in this world. We all fell down. Every one of us fell down from the spiritual world because we became envious of Krishna. It's not that, it's only Duryodhana, it's not me. No, all of us, we're in the material world because we became envious of Krishna. We wanted to emulate him or surpass him. And we wanted to, in some way or other, be Krishna ourselves. Now that, of course, is a violation of the laws of nature or dharma. So therefore, we immediately fall down from the spiritual world, and now we have two choices. Either we can, in a hopeless way, try and emulate Krishna by controlling some part of material nature and enjoying it as much as we can, but there's always going to be misery accompanying that enjoyment. Or we can surrender to Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. So, therefore, it says, Duryodhana, being envious of this opulence of Yudhisthira, right, planned so many schemes to put Yudhisthira into difficulty, and at last the battle of Kurukshetra was brought about. This is what happens. Eventually there's war between members of the family, between different sects, between different races, between different countries. There's war. There's destruction. There's hatred. There's greed. So if you use your intelligence to plan many schemes to put Yudhisthira into difficulty, that is what's happening. When someone becomes envious of someone else, they plan, how can I destroy this person? And this happens all the time, on all different levels, on the highest levels in the material world, middle levels, and the lowest levels, this type of hatred where you want to destroy another person. This was Ravana's problem. He wanted to destroy Rama and completely neuter him and make him completely ineffective. So when Rama was exiled by his father, he's in the forest. He doesn't have an army. He seems to not have any weapons, although he hid the weapons. His wife tried to convince him, don't take the weapons because they're meant to kill people, and that's not nice. What? He said, I'm not going to give up my weapons. I'll hide them, but I'm not giving them up. You see. And he didn't. And what happened in the forest? Well, the forest is, or the jungle. They don't use the word jungle anymore. They use the word forest or something like that. But it's a jungle. It's a very dangerous place, not only because there are dangerous animals, but because they're dangerous people also. And they're wild people. So Rama did not give up his weapons, and he had to use them, not every day, but there were certain situations in which he had to use them. But by providence, Sita was kidnapped, and it precipitated into a gigantic war that was most destructive. There were over 33 million Rakshasas on the earth at that time. And almost all of them were killed. I mean, of course, Bhishan survived because he surrendered to Lord Rama, but most of the other ones who were antagonistic, they were all killed. So it was a tremendous battle. There's no battle in history where 33 million, let's see, in the World War II, about, the 330 million Rakshasas. So that's a lot. I don't think there's been a war where so many people have died in one time. So 330 million. So we're talking about 1/3 of a billion Rakshasas were on the earth. Okay, so in World War II, about 50 to 60 million people died. So that was a very destructive war. But of course, the Battle of Kurukshetra, 640 million people died, right? So that was even more destructive. So you can see that the weapons, we're talking about in 18 days, so many people died in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So the weapons that they had at that time were much more lethal than the weapons today. So anyway, it says, after the Battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhisthira was again able to rule his legitimate kingdom, and he reinstated the principles of honor and respect for religion. So, yeah, that's why Duryodhana lost the battle, because he didn't have respect for Sanatana Dharma, for Dharma, for occupational duties that you're required to do to please the Lord. So he, instead of trying to please the Lord, he did things that made Krishna, let's say, upset. When Krishna went to beg, basically, Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, to give the Pandavas just one village each, they'll be satisfied, he said, and they won't cause any problems to you. You can have the whole kingdom. Just give them one, because they're Kshatriyas, they have to have something. You can't deny them everything. In other words, it went from the whole kingdom to just one village each. And Duryodhana said, I won't give him enough land to put a pin into. That's an extreme insult to the Lord. And that's why there had to be war, because it was recalcitrant, it was fanatical, it was uncompromising. That means there has to be a fight. So it's very sad. And but it says, Prabhupada says, that is the beauty of a kingdom ruled by a pious king like Maharaj Yudhisthira, because there's honor and respect for religion. Is there honor and respect for religion today? No, there isn't. Like I was speaking, who was I speaking to? I was speaking to Shrestha yesterday, and she told me that one of her teachers, I guess, they said all over the school there are signs, Black Lives Matter, all over the school. And in the classroom, they teach Black Lives Matter. Now, the question came up, isn't it right to say that all lives matter? And the teacher said, no, because the black people are having a lot more suffering than everybody else. Therefore, we should focus only on Black Lives Matter. So it's just they asked me the question, what do you think about this? I said, that's racism. She said, what? I said, that's racism. Racism means you prefer one race over all others. That's called racism. So why not consider the Palestinians? Why not consider the Ukrainians? Why not consider the Cambodians? Why not consider the Hutus and Tutus in Africa? All these people are suffering and have suffered in the past terrible racism, terrible wars, terrible rape and killing. But no, they ignore all of that and they say Black Lives Matter. That is racism. They prefer one race over all other races. See? And this is happening right down the street here. And then she told me also all the Latinos in the class are getting upset because every day this one male teacher keeps emphasizing Black Lives Matter, right? And then also they say he teaches that freedom of religion means you're free to reject religion. So when you have a teacher like that, what do you expect? What's going to happen to the kids? You know? And I said, well, isn't anybody? Aren't the Christian kids in the classroom, complaining about it? He said, no, they just go along with it. In fact, the teacher says it's good not to go to church on Sunday. Now, what are you going to do in a situation like that, right? That guy has them either 1 hour or maybe 8 hours a day. And all the classes, he's preaching this gospel of hatred and racism, right? Someone said, oh, what are you saying? Racism is what white people are doing to black people. No, racism means you choose one race over all other races. That's what racism is. See? It might be white people over black people or black people over everybody else, right? So that's what racism, and they're teaching racism in the school. And they're calling it, not racism. So it's just like, naming a child who's blind beautiful eyes. See, so that's not what the child does not have beautiful eyes. Unfortunately, the child was born blind. So if you choose one race over all others and militate for it, that is racism. That's what Hitler did. That's what Putin is doing now. That's what Mao Zedong did. Mao Zedong did the what he called the Cultural Revolution. He killed about 20 million Chinese who were not communist enough. And but they called it the Cultural Revolution, right? Grabbing people off the street and killing them, right? Because they're not communist enough, right? So how about all those people are being killed? How about all those people that have suffered now and are suffering in the past? Why don't you include them? No, only Black Lives Matter. See? So we're living in a dangerous world, and we don't realize how dangerous this educational system is. it is junk. And Prabhupada was completely against it. And there's nothing wrong with children being trained to be devotees. In fact, there's everything right about it. You look at Arjuna and the Pandavas; they were trained to be devotees by their parents, and their mentors like Bhisma Pitamaha, and like their gurus, and like Krishna himself. So, and they were the most successful people in the world, the most successful. So we should take it seriously as parents to train our kids to be Krishna conscious, and not for our kids to waste their time playing basketball and doing sleepovers and talking nonsense and this thing and that thing. It's not that a child's life should be miserable. A child's life should be challenging to go to higher and higher heights of Krishna consciousness. And the farther you go into Krishna consciousness, the more evolved you become as a person and as a devotee. Okay, so I wanted to touch on something else today, because the Mayavad philosophy is extremely dangerous, most dangerous, worse than anything else. And Prabhupada explains in depth about it in 2 verses in the Adi Lila. It's the Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse 101 and verse 114. What does he talk about in those 2 verses? He talks about mainly the very destructive work that Sadananda Yogendra did to violate what Sankaracharya actually wanted, and develop a monstrous, horrible philosophical school called Mayavad philosophy. Now, Sankaracharya did write the Sarirakbhasya, and he did espouse Mayavad philosophy. But then he rejected it near the end of his life. He only lived 32 years. But then near the end of his life, he said, look, give this all up, this word jugglery, and just worship Govinda. So,
There was one question on the...
Yeah, go ahead.
In the prior topic, which is choosing good people over bad people also called racism?
What? Is choosing good people over bad people?
Will it be considered discrimination or racism?
No, racism means choosing one race over all others. So that's what Hitler did. He chose the so-called Aryan race, blonde, blue eyes, tall people, that are Germanic. So that's racism. So Black Lives Matter is racism. It's choosing one race over all others. And the question came up in Shasta's class, what about all lives matter? They said, no, that you can't do that. These people are suffering more than anyone else. Well, wait a minute. The Palestinians are suffering much more than the black people are suffering in the United States. Much, much more. So why don't you choose them also? You see? So no, it's racism. Now, is anyone else saying that? No, no one else is saying that. I'm saying it. Why am I saying it? Because racism means choosing one race over all others. Okay, so anyway, so the Mayavadis are even worse than that. Because here's what Prabhupada says. He says, Sankara would be astonished today by seeing the Mayavadis. This is in this book. Right? He says, these impersonalists of the present age declare themselves to be followers of Shripad Shankaracharya. But even if Shankaracharya himself happened to appear, he would be astonished to see his so-called followers. In fact, these impersonalists are all atheists and materialists. He said, not just they're atheists, they're also materialists, right? They have nothing to do either with the actual Baba Brahmavada school of Sankaracharya, or with the Bhagavata Sampradaya represented by the Vaishnavacharyas. In other words, what they're doing today as Mayavada has nothing to do with Sankaracharya and his teaching, nor does it have anything to do with Vaishnavism. They're out there in space, in their own space. They've created this monster that's destroying people's lives called Mayavad philosophy. The impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth, as propounded by the so-called Brahmavada school, falls short of spiritual progress from its first step. My God, it's not that they make a couple good steps and then a bad step. It's right from the first step. Sankaracharya's impersonal conception of Brahmavada had some meaning because he emphasized renouncing material activities. His ideal example of renunciation, as personally practiced and taught by him, has great significance for the demoniac people of the age of Kali. But the present impersonalists do not follow Sankaracharya or the Shastra. They do, however, preach something that is not only absurd from all spiritual points of view, but is the start of material enjoyment, which they try to cover with the red garments of renunciation. In other words, they dress like sannyasis, but they're not sannyasis. These so-called followers of Sripad Sankaracharya are condemned by Sankaracharya himself because they have taken the red dress simply for the matter of filling their bellies. The atheistic impersonalists have done tremendous harm to the potential for spiritual advancement of the people in general. Therefore, the impersonalists have become the principal target of reformation for the peaceful Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. He says, we're taking direct aim at them when we go out on Sankirtan. We're proving that we are persons, and that God is a person, and you can have a transcendental life even now in this body if you engage it in Krishna consciousness. Right? That's direct violation of the Mayavada. So no, you have to meditate all the time and reject everything material. No, we don't reject everything material. We try and use everything material in the service of Krishna. So they are completely opposite to all principles, even of Sankaracharya, right? So they create, and it's just all due to Sadananda Yogendra. So what time is it now?
7:14.
Okay, so I'll go over this tomorrow about Sadananda Yogendra. Now, isn't this shocking? Prabhupada is saying, if Sankaracharya was present today, he'd be shocked seeing what Mayavad philosophy has become. He'd be shocked because it's completely different than what he was actually teaching.
They're not even, they should be having another version with Sankaracharya as it is.
Well, no, Sankaracharya as it is not.
Right now it is not.
Yeah.
But somebody should be writing it.
Sankaracharya as it is. Well, no, it's Sankaracharya as it is. He's Krishna conscious. He's a devotee of Krishna. He's Lord Shiva, right? He's not going to... He did something to trick the Buddhists, either to leave India or to become, to believe that the Vedas are valid. Right? He reestablished the validity of the Vedas, but he gave a Buddhist-type explanation to trick the Buddhists. So I'm sure some Buddhists became Mayavadis, right? Because their philosophy is Mayavad philosophy also, with a little bit of a refinement to it. They have their own refinement. Okay, so we'll start right there, unless there are any questions. Hare Krishna, thank you. So who would like to sing? Huh? Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm going to straighten out my papers here. I wasn't able to do it last night.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Banda Muhi Savadhana Mate
Bando Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavato Riya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya
Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Divya Gyan Hirde Prakashito
Divya Gyan Hide Prakasito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jaite
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Vede Gai Jahara Charito
Vede Gai Janara Charito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhana Janara Bandhu
Lokenath Lokera Jivana
Lokenath Lokera Jivana
Ha ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pad Chaya
Aha Prabhu Korodoya Dehamore Padachaya
He Bejas Gushuk Tribhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda
Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Bolo Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Gaur
jai.
Premanandi Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikachasta Tarasaturi Shri Shiman. His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Shri Chakratpuri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to assembled devotees, all glorious to assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavane ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Buddha Krishna Vishnu. The lotus of our spiritual master is the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prem emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.